FHS season tickets.
Welcome into another episode of FHS Season Tickets. I'm Michael, and today I'm doing another solo interview, this time with Ryan Glasspiegel from the Big Lead. Really excited about this interview. Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, I cover media, NFL, NBA, and pro wrestling and breaking news for the Big Lead. I've got a podcast of my own where I've had some really interesting guests like Michael Wilbon, Dan Lebatard, Jay Billis, Colin Cowherd, Big Cat and Prez from Barstool, and a bunch more. And I'm excited to be on here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really excited to have you on the show. We're going to start off talking about your last article last night, talking about the Houston Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson and their fan going against Saihan Fahey, I do believe you pronounce him. What have your thoughts been about Watson so far this season? I said as a Browns fan that I wasn't really high on him going to the Browns just because cold weather environment. I was a little bit worried about his arm strength going to the Browns. But I said if you are a Southern team or playing a dome, that Watson could be very successful. And it looks like in the Houston Texans offense so far, he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the league through the first quarter of the season. What have you seen from Watson so far?
Yeah, so he's got not a tremendously hard act to follow between people like Tom Savage and Brian Hoyer and TJ Yates, and just so the every awful quarterback in the league, it seems like, has had a run in Houston, and Bill O'Brien, who's an alleged quarterback guru, hasn't been able to make lemonade out of any of them. And now all of a sudden they've got Deshaun Watson. They go through this whole charade, the whole preseason and week one, of saying Tom Savage is the starter and we're going to bring Watson on slowly, and that edict lasted until halftime of week one when they brought Watson in, and so far he's looked great. Now, you've got to grade rookie quarterbacks on a curve. He hasn't been Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady in their prime or anything like that, but if you're a Texans fan, you've got to be excited that this guy is going to be hopefully the cornerstone of your franchise for 8-9 years, maybe even more. And yeah, he's benefited from having DeAndre Hopkins, who's probably one of the most dynamic receivers in the league, but all those other quarterbacks we talked about also had him, and they weren't able to get him the ball. And you can see the look in Hopkins' face, oh my God, this guy actually throws it within 3 feet of me, and I can go up and get it. It's amazing. And yeah, there's a Texans fan who really didn't like Kian Fahey, who's a quarterback scout who has a podcast for ESPN, and it's not very complimentary of Watson pre-draft and hasn't adjusted his scouting opinion with how Watson has performed in the league so far, and he really let him have it.
Yeah, we had Chase Serrano of The Ringer on nearing the NBA Finals, and he was talking about how excited he was for Deshaun Watson to be Houston Texans quarterback. And then Kian actually said that he would have immediately eliminated Deshaun Watson off his draft board after seeing his, I believe, 49-mile-per-hour speed at the Combine, which I found really bizarre. He has me blocked on Twitter. He has about, I'm sure, 50,000 people. He probably has more people blocked on Twitter than he has followers, not even going to lie. He's kind of known for that.
He throws out these very strong opinions, and it's the type of person where if you disagree with him, you just think this guy is a total moron. But then he can be just ruthless in his scouting of these quarterbacks, but if anybody pushes back at him and his professional content, then he's really thin-skinned about it. It's an interesting dynamic. But he does have a lot of, I know he's blocked a lot of people. He's got a lot of people who don't like him. He also has a lot of people in power who do like him. I mean, Dan Lebatard and Bomani on their show. So he's clearly he's found a niche, and good for him. But I think I understand the segment of the population that's bothered by the delivery of his content.
Yeah, totally. He is not afraid to use the block button on Twitter at all has just so many people blocked. It's kind of hilarious at this point. But we're going to hop in to another quarterback debate that I have been having with all my friends at school. And I'm sure you will. I hope you agree with me on this because I don't think there's really anyone in my camp so far. I said that Aaron Rodgers is the greatest quarterback of all time. And I don't think it's really all that close. Would you agree with that statement as a Packers fan?
Okay, so I would agree with part of that statement. Rodgers, when he's playing at his best, is better than any other quarterback at their best of all time. But there are quarterbacks who have better bodies of work. Tom Brady and Joe Montana are more accomplished in their aggregate careers than Rodgers, and it's really difficult at this stage to see him really ever catching them. But I've been watching football for 25 years, and I've never seen someone at their best be better than Rodgers at their best. It really, like Jason Wilde, who's covered the Packers for years and years, said it's kind of like the Matrix, where he's just playing at a different speed than everybody else on the field, and he sees things in slow motion and plays accordingly. And I don't think I've ever seen anybody else who hits throws in the windows he does, or can make those plays and can make the plays that he can with his legs and have the arm strength to hit people on deep balls, as we've seen time and time again with these Hail Marys, which you can't even call luck anymore. And so I'm going to, I hope this isn't like a chicken poop answer, but I'm going to agree with half of what you said.
All right, that's fair enough. My basis for my argument, why I think Rodgers is the best, is if we were playing one football game and I can decide between any quarterback all time to lead my team, my first draft pick is going to be Aaron Rodgers, and I'm not hesitating at all.
Brady or Montana, because they won more of those games, and you could say they had better coaching, you can say they had better defense. Brady has not had better weapons on offense than Rodgers has, and they've lost a lot of these playoff games, and a lot of the times Rodgers gets them down the field, and then the defense lets him down, but that's just the breaks.
Yeah, Rodgers actually has better career playoff stats in everything than Brady, except for win percentage and sack percentage. So that's basically why I think that Aaron Rodgers is the best, because even in the playoffs, like you mentioned, where Rodgers has been as successful in team-wise, just individually, his stats.
That Seattle collapse really wasn't his fault at all. They lost that overtime game against Arizona. They had the game where they were beating the 49ers, and they tied the 49ers, and the defense just let them march down the field and kick a field goal to win it at the end of regulation. But there were two games that he wasn't very good in the playoffs. That Atlanta game last year, I think you can squarely say that he was outplayed by Matt Ryan. And in the Giants game in the 2011 season, so it was early 2012, he did not play very well in that game. So there have been losses where he hasn't performed very well in, but I can see what you're saying with his stats being better than Brady's for the most part, other than quarterback wins.
Now, my argument here, I'm sure that killed you as a Packers fan going through all those playoff losses. I wish I could do that as a Browns fan, because I could go through, 0 playoff losses in my lifetime.
There's problems when I'm talking about these. I fully understand that.
Yes, but the 2011 season was arguably the greatest season any quarterback has ever played in NFL history. Maybe the Brady season with Moss when they went undefeated. But you saw what he did in the Super Bowl against the Giants. He was awful, and the Patriots probably should have won that game. And if they win, it goes down in history.
Some of those Peyton Manning cold seasons, too.
Yes, Manning is definitely up there with that, too. And then the Matt Ryan game, I actually had the Falcons winning the Super Bowl at the start of the playoffs. So at halftime of the Patriots game, I thought I was a genius, because I told everyone, start of the playoffs, Falcons are going to win it. I think they were plus 1,000 to win the Super Bowl at the start of the playoffs. And I was like, you know what? I'm all over that. I think that they're going to win the Super Bowl. That's the team who you should be putting your money on. And it looked great for 3.5 quarters. And then Brady came down, and Brady played exactly how Rodgers played against Atlanta throughout the first 3.5 quarters. I believe they both had one interception. Brady's went for a pick six. They both threw for like an average yards per pass and passer rating, and then Brady had the dropped interception, and then that was caught by Amendola and went down and scored, got 2-point conversion, and then led the Patriots to victory in overtime. So I think that's...
Sorry to interrupt you, but the Favre from 95 to 97 was as good, if not better, than any 3-year Rodgers stretch. So you can go 2010 through 2012, which is probably the 3 years you'd pick, given that they had that great year you talked about, but lost to the Giants and won a Super Bowl in that window. But Favre won 3 consecutive MVPs, and if you look at his stats relative to the rest of the league, they're really eye-popping.
That's a big thing relative to the rest of the league because quarterback stats have gone drastically up. Yards per pass have gone up. After they started off really high, I was looking at career yards per pass, and all the leaders are from like 1950s. Then there's Rodgers in there at number 5. Relative to the rest of the league is huge. I have never been a Brett Favre guy. Him and John Elway, I think, are 2 of the most overrated quarterbacks of all time. But
look closer at Favre during the Holmgren years because these quarterbacks, a lot of them go in tandem with their coaches. And after Holmgren left the Packers for Seattle, Favre definitely suffered for it. But if you look at how he did 94, 95, 96, and 97, like those years are pretty unbelievable.
yeah, that was before my time, born in 2000. So
go look at those 95 through 97 stats relative to the rest of the league, though, and you'll be like astonished.
Yeah, I'm sure it is like ridiculous. Favre is... He's considered one of the like top 5-10 quarterbacks of all time, which is debatable in my opinion, but there's no denying how great he was for the Green Bay Packers. It's always difficult comparing players that played before you were around and before you started watching football.
You got to figure out kind of who to trust and take their word for it.
Yes, which is a very difficult thing. Now we're going to kind of switch bases off of the NFL because depressed Browns fan here does not like talking about the NFL all day. So we're going to talk about Lamelo Ball transferring out of Chino Hills. You wrote an article about this. Do you think this is smart by LeVar Ball, what he's doing?
It depends how you define smart. It is smart for the purposes of maximizing the attention on the balls and the revenue from that attention going to the family and staying with it. There's not, you can't get around the fact right now that Lamelo Ball is a child star, and some of them have turned out okay. Like LeBron James is on the cover of SI at age 16, and his games were televised on ESPN2. He bought, someone bought him a Hummer for his 16th birthday, and aside from the decision and weird sensibility workout videos, you could say LeBron has wound up just fine. And Justin Timberlake has also kind of bucked the trend, but the batting average on child stars who wind up normal and functional and happy and fulfilled in later years is not very high. Now, you can say the genie was out of the bottle on that already because he's been a child star for really a year now, and there's been a ton of attention, and he already had a Lamborghini and a signature shoe line. So how much different is it now that he's getting pulled out of school and practicing on his own instead of playing in front of the masses? But it's a tough thing to predict in advance. I don't want to say, oh, he's going to end up with a crippling drug addiction and his life is going to be ruined by the time he's 23, because it's the kind of prediction that you look back on and are happy you got it right. So I'm going to be diplomatic and say we got to reserve judgment until we have the benefit of hindsight.
Yes, many child stars have gone through very difficult periods. I have been so impressed with how LeBron has handled himself after the decision, which was just a horrible call by him, especially being a young kid from Cleveland, kind of killed me. But LaMelo Ball, one person I follow said if LaMelo Ball turns into a guy like Tyus Jones, who goes to UCLA, wins national title as 5-star recruit, gets drafted late first round, and is a backup point guard for a couple years and is solid, that's going to look horrible for Lamelo Ball. But
He ain't going to UCLA.
You don't think so?
Unless they change the rules on the NCAA, there's no way he can play Division I. The only way that he would fit under, you can't have players selling their own shoes. Like, if you could do that, then, look, I'm fully in favor of them changing these rules, and I think you should. But with their current framework, there's no way that this falls into, the regulations. So unless they change it to make it so you're allowed to receive endorsements in the next 2 years, then he's going to be playing somewhere else that year.
I have a couple things to say about that. One, I think that the new situation with all the Adidas schools and potentially more schools is going to really help LaMelo Ball get eligible and change the rules. Another thing, I think that LeVar Ball could just take LaMelo Ball's name off of the shoe for the 7-8 months that he'll be enrolled at UCLA, and then for that time, it's just a random Big Baller brand shoe instead of the LaMelo Ball shoe.
Look, I don't want to get into this business of defending the NCAA for their archaic rules.
I get it.
Yeah. If he's allowed to have a shoe right now, then there's nothing. Let's say he was committed to Oregon instead of UCLA, because it's really easy for me to use Phil Knight as an example. Phil Knight could just buy 1 million pairs of these stupid Big Baller shoes. Not a million, but he could buy 2,000 pairs, and that's functionally giving $1 million to the Ball family, and then he chooses the school. If you allow these players to operate their own businesses from their likeness before college, then you open up that whole can of worms. Now, look, we know that these players have been getting paid by the shoe companies and the agents and the runners and the local car dealers and whoever the hell else. Anyone who puts out money, they're going to take it. And this isn't new, by the way. This goes back. Wilt Chamberlain, boosters at Kansas would, give him $100 handshakes and that's the time when $100 was $600 or $700 now. This goes back for years and years and years and years, and it's not even new with the shoe companies. So you can't, if they're not going to just change it and make it so you're just straight up allowed to have endorsements, then there's no way that he's playing at UCLA.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I kind of feel like this won't be a trend with the individual shoe contracts and businesses starting off from a high school kid, because I'm not sure the appeal of how many who's
Ben Simmons could have done this, Kevin Durant could have done this. We know who the best basketball prospects are when they're 15 or 16. It's not a secret. Everybody knows who they are. And Jahlil Okafor could have done it when he was a big recruit. I know that his dad is a force of personality, but it's really not a leap to think that any of these 15-year-olds could have businesses built around their likeness.
But who's buying Cam Reddish and Romeo Langford gear? I really don't think anyone would be.
Yeah, but it's not that people are going to buy their gear. It's that the shoe companies get attached to them at age 15 instead of age 19, and they're making bets on the back end. They're not thinking, I'm going to make money on this 16-year-old shoe right now. It's, I'm going to have him under my control so that when he's 23 or 24, that's when the return on the investment comes. It's really not a secret who these stars are.
I get that. From a business sense, you sign people early, try and get them under a bargain contract, and then if they make it big, you just pledge loyalty to them, and then they stay.
Right, it's like a call option almost.
Yeah, they're almost like in the minor leagues for your shoe deals if it's like a Nike or Adidas or Under Armour.
By the way, I'm not opposed to that being the case because that's a mutually beneficial transaction. The player gets cashes out a little bit on his or her talent early, and their family, who may not have come from the most means, gets a little bit of a buffer 3-4 years before they otherwise would have, and the shoe company gets a bargain on the back end, and then at the time when it comes to renegotiate the contract, the player is either worth a lot more or he's not. I don't see anything wrong with that, but the whole system has to change to allow it before somebody like Lamelo Ball can have a signature shoe line and play in D1.
Yeah, I get that. I also find the NCAA rules bizarre about how, like, swimmers and track athletes can still go to the Olympics and make money off their name at the Olympics, and then when they come back,
it's a compensation avoidance scheme, and anything that they want to say otherwise about the purity of amateurism or anything else like that is a sham. And once you kind of realize that, you just wonder what it's going to take to make these people capitulate to change.
I talked with somebody last year about the idea of spatting. It was Bill Wilson. He had an article retweeted by Jay Billis, and we kind of talked about, like, the fraud that is college athletics in at least football and basketball. He had an extreme idea saying that there should be no scholarships given to anybody who isn't a football, men's basketball, and occasional baseball and women's basketball players, which I found really extreme, but I also see where he's coming from.
No, I don't agree with that, but I do agree that the revenue sports disproportionately subsidize the non-revenue sports, and that's a house of cards. It's not going to endure forever. And I went to Wisconsin, and they're going to have to make a decision at some point on whether they want to keep propping up, like, swimming and things like, and track and field and things like that, and volleyball, which they're really successful in, but probably doesn't make them a whole lot of money, or whether they're going to want to reinvest, like, the money that comes in through their football and basketball TV contracts into compensating players when that becomes the, like, standard. And we'll see what they'll do. I wouldn't make, like, any blanket proclamations, because these schools can decide how to spend their money however they want to. But I think that the days of all of these scholarships being doled out across all these men's and women's sports are dwindling.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, like, the backlash from different people, because you kind of have the one side of the people who say that the talented football and men's basketball players aren't getting compensated right now, but then if you do compensate them, how do you compensate all the women's athletes and the other men's athletes whose sports don't make a lot of money? It's going to be very interesting to see how, like, social justice warriors react to what each individual school does, because I really don't think there's any way that you get both sides happy from...
I don't know. See, do WNBA players make as much as NBA players?
But
no, they don't. But you know what? Women's tennis players can compete with what men's tennis players can make. Like Maria Sharapova, there aren't too many men who have made more money in prizes and endorsements in tennis than Sharapova has. Now, maybe Federer or Nadal, but they're two historically great performers. But there aren't too many people that I hear yelling about the NBA players making more money than the WNBA players, because it's pretty cut and dry what they draw. And I don't know. It's a tough thing to say that. I don't want to say that women shouldn't be getting scholarships that men get, but when it comes to compensating athletes, you've got to look at what, like, that athlete is worth as a de facto employee.
Yeah, there's no doubt that something about Title IX has to change. I'm not really...
I asked Jay Billis about this last week, and he explained it, but I'm not as smart as he is, and I don't understand the dynamics of exactly what would shift. But he seemed to think it wasn't as big of a hurdle as it's made out to be.
Yeah, well, didn't he go to Duke Law School?
Yes.
Yeah, so definitely a very smart guy. He is one of those guys on TV that you don't remember that he was a former player. He's just that good on TV that him as an analyst has overshadowed him being a former player, kind of like Kirk Herbstreit too. But now we're going to jump in about college football, talk about your Wisconsin Badgers. I've said all season, from the start of the season, that Wisconsin is not good, but I think they go 11-1 this year. Tell me if I'm right or wrong in that statement about your team.
They're favored in every game, at least until Michigan on November 18th.
Yep.
And I think they're pretty good. I'm a big believer in Paul Chryst and his play calling, playing to the strengths of Wisconsin. Chris is definitely a better coach than Gary Anderson was, and I think he's better than Brett Bielema was too. They haven't taken a step back on defense despite losing their defensive coordinators to higher paying jobs each of the last 2 years. Jim Leonard has stepped in and he's like running a Rex Ryan defense, and it's like they lose their best linebacker and it hasn't mattered yet. I'm going to predict that Wisconsin goes into the Big Ten title game undefeated, which means that they spoil Michigan's season. But then I just don't think we have the athletes to compete with Penn State on a neutral field. Now, if Penn State had to go into Camp Randall in December, I know that they're not playing, in like Miami or anything. Like Pennsylvania is not this,
warm, not warm at all.
Easy climate, but I think that Wisconsin's football team is more situated to perform in football weather than Penn State's is, and that we'd have a chance to beat them at home. But having seen Penn State decimate Wisconsin in a dome last year where they would just throw the ball up in the air and one of their superb athletes would go up and beat our defenders for it and score a touchdown every damn play, I don't believe we can beat them again. So I hope that somehow Wisconsin in the Big Ten title game, I'd way rather face Michigan or Ohio State than Penn State.
Wow, that's interesting. I'm from Ohio, not an Ohio State fan, actually a Vanderbilt fan. But I am very interested with you saying that you're much worried about Penn State than Ohio State. I know the Big Ten title game last year, playing in a dome. I'm sure all you Wisconsin fans are like, why do we have to play a Big Ten title game in a dome? That's not true football weather. But
we had Ohio State on the ropes last year. I'm not scared of them. Penn State, I don't think we can beat, though, on a neutral field.
I get that Ohio State game last year, but that was in your building, and Ohio State just looked bad. And I think Ohio State this year is much better than Ohio State last year in terms of talent-wise. Also, Jim Leonard has done a fantastic job at defensive coordinator for Wisconsin. So many people talking about his praises, and what he's done defensively has just been fantastic for the Badgers.
He fits into a really easy narrative to tell a story because he was like a walk-on player. He was an
Everyone loves him.
Free agent who thrived in the pros, and he's a Rex Ryan disciple. And by the way, the defense is playing great so far. Now, Wisconsin hasn't played anybody yet. And I don't know if Nebraska this year constitutes anybody either, though they've won like 20 straight at home or something, and we're playing them at night. So if they win that game convincingly, then I think you can really start to say Wisconsin's pretty good.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Wisconsin does because they go Michigan at home, then what's the final game, Iowa?
No, the final game's always Minnesota.
Minnesota. I knew it was one of those rivalry games up there. But then they go Big Ten title game, you would assume, as long as they don't blow it.
It's almost a presumption in their crap division that they make the Big Ten title game almost every year.
But if they lose to a team like Iowa or Nebraska or Minnesota, you're going to need them to lose twice, and that would be inferring that they beat Michigan. So it's not as a certainty as I think some people are laying it out to be.
No, it's not a certainty, but you gotta say it's like a 65% chance.
Yeah, I'd say about 70% that Wisconsin does go to the
it's
Big
like
Ten title game.
If you bat 350, which is the chance that it doesn't happen, then you're an MLB Hall of Famer. So it's not a foregone conclusion, but yeah, I least like a 2/3 chance.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Anything else you want to talk about with me, like questions you have for me or other sports that you want to hit before we wrap it up?
I thought you were going to bring up media.
Oh, so the biggest thing about media right now that I think we're going to see a change in, and I've seen a change recently, is how often people are talking about gambling and Vegas lines. Do you think with all the forward momentum towards sports gambling, will they basically make sports gambling legal? And how much content do you think is going to be used towards sports gambling once it is legalized?
Well, today the Chernin Group announced that they were acquiring 3 different sites and put them together. The Chernin Group is Barstool's parent company, and they know what they're doing from a content perspective. They hired Chad Millman, who is probably like the foremost gambling reporter in America, and also ran ESPN, the magazine, and ESPN.com for the last several years. So they're pretty serious about getting into that. I think it's almost oversaturated though now, because like Bill Simmons has been doing it for 10 years, that podcast with Kevin Sal. He had his picks column for even longer. There are a lot of people who cover gambling out there and cover the lines, and I'm just of the opinion that nobody knows anything. So like how can you account for what happened last night? We're taping this on a Tuesday. How can you account for what happened in the Chiefs-Washington game, where Washington's covering the whole game? You made a smart bet if you picked them, and then all of a sudden they're running the lateral play with 0 seconds left, and the Chiefs not only recover it, but instead of kneeling down, which is the strategically smart decision in that situation, they run it into the end zone for the cover and the over. Like, it's just all I've gotten actually away from gambling on sports myself, because it drives me absolutely crazy to lose like that, more than it makes me exhilarated to win. And I think that with what you said about legalization, my guess is it's not going to be federally legalized real soon, but it's going to start I think that New Jersey is going to win their Supreme Court case, and you're going to see it start going state by state, and that maybe 5 years from now, over half of the country has legal sports wagering.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. A couple things about that. Just that Washington versus Kansas City all-time bad beat. I pretty much only send out gambling picks for college football. I'm 49-36 on the year. I had some really bad beats this week. You mentioned the Washington versus Kansas City game. Much less fashion, but you talk about a smart play. I actually took Vandy against the spread. First time I took him against the spread all year, so it's not like I'm always betting my team to win. I took him against the spread against Florida. Thought was the right bet. We were down 10-point underdogs. Minute 40 to go. 4th down and 1 from the 40-yard line. McElwain tells the guy, you get the first down, you go down. Well, the running back scampers into the end zone, and I lose the cover there. Also lost a couple other games in bizarre fashion. I lost an over due to 2 drop touchdowns and a missed field goal. And then I missed Florida State, who had 2 touchdowns get called back for penalties, and they were 7.5-point favorites and won by 7. So I had a very unlucky week, but still managed to go 7-6. So that's kind of how I stay positive, because at least if I'm over 500.
If you were on the other side of that and you won that bet because of those stupid things, you wouldn't be happier than you were mad about them costing you the bet.
Oh, I know. I had one game which I was really lucky. It was the Boston College Northern Illinois game. I had the under and Boston College minus 2.5, and Northern Illinois missed a field goal to end the game that was sent it into overtime, where I most likely would have only split at best.
Well, I'd be very interested to see if you went a week where you didn't look at the lines and didn't pick games and just watched the games rooting for excitement instead, and like rooting for the teams you like and against the teams you don't like without any gambling implications, whether you think that's more or less fun, because that's what I've been doing for 2 years now, and I think it's more fun to watch football without the specter of gambling. But I recognize that gambling interest really drives the sport. So there are a lot more people who are fans of the action and the fantasy than there actually are who are maybe not a lot more, but certainly on the margins, it adds a lot to the viewership. And I'm interested to see how you would feel if you didn't bet on the stuff or pick the lines.
No, I just started two years. Last year was my first year I did, so I'm at 1.5 years right now. And I actually completely disagree with you. I think that it's made me care about these random games that I would have never cared about. If I have an over-under, one team against the spread, I find myself rooting for them and being a lot more interested and invested in the game. And it gives me a reason to watch Boston College versus Northern Illinois on a Friday night after our high school football team takes a huge loss, and gives me something to get distracted from.
I'm envious of the time you're able to devote to watching football now, and I say that as someone who watches professionally. But once you start getting into serious relationships later in your 20s, you need excuses not to watch football.
Yeah, well, I'm still 17, so I'm good on that.
Okay, you're more than all right.
Yeah, I'm completely fine right now.
You've got a decade probably, but just be careful because you're going to get it yanked away from you slowly but surely when you meet the right person.
Yeah, and then once you have kids, all bets are off.
You got to find a way. You have to scratch and claw your way into this industry so you can say that it's work.
Yes, that's what I'm planning to do. 100%. All right.
Thanks a lot for having me. This is really fun. Let's do it again sometime soon.
Yeah, I'll definitely keep in touch with you. Thanks so much, Ryan, for coming on. If you guys want to follow him, he's at Sports Rappaport on Twitter. Is that right?
Rapport, R-A-P-P-O-R-T.
R-A-P-P-O-R-T. All right.
It means good chemistry and conversation.
All right. I'm not an English major, so that will be something I'll improve on. But that will wrap it up for this episode of FHS Season Tickets. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like and also subscribe for more season ticket videos.